Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Dee again, and welcome to The Interstate with Dee. Today is Saturday, October 19th, 2024. Welcome back to our trip on the Interstate. What we do here is present news from the state level that will end up having national importance later, or news that made it into the national news cycle but was overshadowed. Then we go over some questions from y'all. On October 19th, 1983, the U.S. Senate voted to establish Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And on October 19th, back in 1960, Martin Luther King Jr. was participating in a sit-in in Georgia when he was arrested along with 50 others. I looked trying to find some connection, but these two events happening on the same date appears to be a coincidence. Okay, now on to the news. In Arizona, Ruben Gallego's divorce filings were unsealed. Throughout the campaign, his Senate opponent, Carrie Lake, has made it seem like the findings would lead to damaging revelations. They're actually pretty boring. The judge who ordered the case sealed has described it as, quote, one of the most garden variety divorce files I have ever seen. Gallego is now demanding an apology from Lake. In the swing state of Georgia, there was tons of state-level news that will break into national news. Some of it I know Bell covered, but a quick recap. The Republican push to get voters off of the voting rolls doesn't seem to be working, with only 1% of the attempts being successful. The far-right push to alter election rules and set up a situation where local officials could stall certification of the election hit legal roadblocks, although Republicans are appealing, and early and absentee voting is hitting record numbers. Michigan's cherry crop was so bad this year that the USDA has approved disaster relief. It's estimated that up to 70% of the crop was lost. Missouri ran a scale earthquake drill. If you think that's an odd sentence, it's because Missouri's New Madrid Fault is nowhere near as famous as the San Andreas Fault. But in 1895, it reportedly generated an earthquake so powerful it was felt from North Carolina to Kansas and from Louisiana to parts of Canada. It's known as the Halloween earthquake. In Montana, corrections are being made to early reporting, indicating a man suffered a fatal bear attack. The incident is now being investigated as a homicide. Ohio has a small town that will probably come to the forefront of the national discussion about journalism and bad information. ProPublica has a piece on it that is so good. I'm just going to put the link down below. If you care about the environment or journalism, it's worth looking at. This came in as a tip from one of y'all. In Oklahoma, a lawsuit was filed against the increasingly troublesome plan by Superintendent Ryan Walters to put Bibles in classrooms. The suit has a number of plaintiffs ranging from teachers to parents to children to faith leaders. It appears that Ryan Walters has unintentionally united Baptists, Catholics, Presbyterians, atheists, agnostics, members of the United Church of Christ, along with those of indigenous faiths. In Oregon, Trump will be on the ballot. While that's not news to most people, a large number of people believed a conspiracy theory being spread online and swamped the election office's phone lines, leading them to being shut down. The Republican Party in the state says Trump didn't have a statement in an election pamphlet because his campaign chose not to send in a statement. In Pennsylvania, Elon Musk stumped for Trump and pushed a discredited Dominion claim. The man who owns a number of tech companies, many of whom operate computer systems that people's lives depend on, said, quote, the last thing I would do is trust a computer program. Puerto Rico is slated to obtain an $861 million loan for solar farms and storage. In Tennessee, a panel of judges created a list of exemptions to the state's abortion law. The temporary list of medically necessary procedures is temporarily pending a final ruling to come later. The list was created because the exemption in the law was viewed as so vague that doctors might not have been performing medically necessary procedures out of fear of being prosecuted. In Texas, a bizarre legal move delayed the implementation of capital punishment against Robert Robertson. A group of lawmakers in Texas who believe him to be innocent issued a subpoena to have him testify at a hearing. A judge stopped his sentence from being carried out with about 90 minutes to spare. This will certainly become a major national story because the court battles aren't really over. Robertson was convicted in a shaken baby case, under a theory that has since been discredited. This is going to be a movie someday. Also in Texas, a public library in Montgomery County has moved a non-fiction children's book on Native history to the fiction because a panel of unelected non-librarians said to. The book is listed in the Library of Congress as nonfiction. The publisher calls it nonfiction, and the historian who wrote the history book says it's nonfiction. Okay, so moving on to the question and answer portion of the show. This first question got asked multiple times in multiple ways, but they all carried the same core message. Question number 1. D. Just until the election, can you give us polling averages to let us know where things are sitting in various states, at least the swing states? Sure. Nationally, it's 48.5% to 46.1% in favor of Harris. As far as swing states, Pennsylvania has Harris up by 0.4%. North Carolina has Trump up by 0.7%. Nevada has Harris up by 0.7%. Arizona has Trump up by 1.8%. Wisconsin has Harris up by 0.2%. Michigan has Harris up by 0.6%. Georgia has Trump up by 1.9%. If these are right, this is a Harris Electoral College win. Just remember, polls aren't really predictive. Unlikely voters will decide this. Question number 2. I'm curious how you try to guess what will become national news. I just really try to think about whether a story has a national impact or not that isn't seen yet. Everybody is talking about inflation. A bad crop of cherries might become a political talking point if the prices shoot up. A book being removed might become a national issue if national free speech organizations get involved. It's stuff like that. Question number 3. Do you comb through every state's papers? Search for each state in Google News? Read constantly? I'm so confused on how you do this. I search by state and try to keep track of developing stories. I also get a lot of tips from y'all, which helps a lot, by the way. And here's your weird state fact. The Venus flytrap is not a plant from some exotic jungle. It's native to North Carolina. Who knew? Okay, that looks like it. We'll see you next week for another trip. Y'all have a good day.